All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Does this, okay. So this is Forms Update. One of the things that we're going to talk about briefly is FERPTA. We can't seem to get this right in Wisconsin, so they did a lovely little flow chart for us. And it just follows along. Is a seller or a foreign entity? No, they still have to complete the form before we go to closing. Let me see what else. Then you go down, advise in writing that sellers and buyers should consult with their attorney or CPA regarding FERPTA. So if they're yes, this is an absolute. If they're not sure, we don't give out the information. I mean, if they're not foreign, it's not really going to be an issue, but some people don't understand it. We can't give advice on that. So you just want to make sure that you're advising them to go ahead and reach out to an attorney or a CPA if they're concerned that they might be a foreign person. Personal residence exception. Are they buying their property for use as a residence? Will the buyer use the property for at least 50% of the time? If this is a yes, which is misleading, it just takes you down to the next boxes of what gets withheld to the IRS. If they are a yes, it's a confusing flow chart. They didn't really clear it up, but they did want us to go ahead and talk about it. If you guys want this flow chart, I can certainly send it out to everybody, but at the end of the day, that FERPTA thing still has to be filled out and be part of your documentation.
So this is part of the listing and buying listing.
Forms update.
So this would be part of listing if you're.
It's both. FERPTA is for both sides.
For both?
Yep. In Minnesota, you guys got a lovely little checkbox that says yes or no, which is so amazing.
But where is it in Wisconsin? Why am I blanking?
It is in the forms. You can have them do it. I always just have them fill it out at the title company. The title company is going to do it for you as well.
Okay. So if I haven't had that filled out yet, the title company will take care of that closing.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Like, oh, why would we do it
I never
then?
knew that
I-
before.
I don't know what it is. I don't want the legal responsibility of it, so let them do it.
It is a fun thing. We're not going to do that one. We're going to go to. Okay. Did I make it big enough for everybody? Okay. So this is just a standard commercial offer to purchase. Everything that is highlighted are changes that made. You'll see right here where it says not included in purchase price of seller's personal property. This is a big deal. Apparently in the commercial world, I'm not fluent in commercial, but it is a good thing that they have a space now where they didn't have a space before to put what was not included. Closing was changed to closing on. They took away on or before, so now it just simply says on. And then it went ahead and updated for closings on Saturday or Sunday or a federal holiday. It'll move. They updated the verbiage for caution wiring, which is also super fun now. And then they've updated the earnest money where it's accompanying or will be mailed. Right here. Okay, this says caution, if the firm does not hold earnest money, this is where you guys got to be careful. We have a brokerage out there who does not, EXP does not hold money. If you use a title company, make sure that you're understanding what the title company's policies and procedures are regarding earnest money, because they don't follow the same rules as a brokerage does. They can hold that earnest money until all of their rules have been met. So just make sure that you understand what that is.
So EXP doesn't hold earnest money
No,
anymore? Oh, no,
No.
I haven't run across one of their deals yet.
Yep.
Interesting.
It changed all of from agency to firm. And then under conditions, they've upped what they're saying with the defects. They've included air filters and humidifiers because that's seeing them more in commercial buildings, as well as joint wells. The other one was cracks, seepage, bulging. This all has to do with foundation. Any defects, LP tanks, the presence of lead-based paint or lead included properties or lead soil, as well as asbestos and asbestos containing materials. You find this a lot in commercial buildings that they've gone ahead and used asbestos grade. Orders as correct code violations. It's now part of it stating that it's there. You have to make them aware of it. You can no longer go ahead and hide that. I don't know why you would want to hide it, but it's added insects. This wasn't in there, which I thought was kind of funny. I looked at one of the old ones and infestation has been now added. Non-owners have rights to use property other than public right-of-ways, but not limited to private right-of-ways, private easements. This all is pertaining to, we've had so many lot line and boundary disputes in Wisconsin that they've put it in the vacant offer to purchase as well. But that they've just updated it and said, if there's a public right-of-way, then you can't block access. So in Wisconsin, county roads have a 55-foot setback. Most cities have 30 to 35 feet. And if that setback touches your property, even though you have no legal access, they can't prevent you any longer from gaining access to it because now it's a public right-of-way. It's crazy. They've gone ahead and updated all of the riparian rights with now that, we can legally leave our docks in the water. This affects those who are on shoreline. Proposed use contingency. They've just updated some of the verbiage on here to make it a little bit more clear. Zoning verification, that the property zoning allows the buyer's proposed described use. If they're gonna buy a restaurant and turn it into a bar and they can't get a liquor license, this is where these things come into play. Or if they're buying vacant industrial property, but then they want to convert it into farmland, this would. Land use permits, they just updated. I've never heard of that NSPS land title survey. I'm assuming that is specific to commercial properties. I've only ever heard of Altas, so I apologize. Lee, have you ever heard of NSPS?
I think you're muted, Lee.
There we go. No, I haven't heard of the NSPS.
Right, and I'm thinking it probably has more to do with our capital, down in the capital area. I've never.
Let me Google it while we're here.
They've gone ahead and updated the verbiage for deadlines for maps. Actual receipt was put into the commercial property, which is good because actual receipt means it's in the hands of the party it was meant to go to. Defects was, the verbiage was just cleaned up on here to make it clean, like the residential offer to purchase. Contingency satisfaction, they updated it to 30 days if left blank. I believe it was a much shorter time frame before. Right to cure, this is the same update that we saw in the residential offer to purchase. It just changed the inspection. So it automatically has the default right to cure, not right to cure. They added commas in. Before it was one big line. It was,
That's hilarious.
so right here, another contingency was changed to 20 days. And after the date on line 1, so line 1 is the date the offer was written. This is important for commercial, not the date it was accepted, the date the offer was written, because in commercial, they can go ahead and get inspections prior to acceptance. So just keep that in mind. Financing, they just updated it to go ahead and hard money lenders can now be put on there. So if it's a specific hard money lender where before it wasn't a lender entity, they can now be put on there. Adjustable rate financing, just clean it up 1%. It just added all of the things. If you go ahead and leave it blank, it'll do the industry or state guidelines of what is allowed. Financing commitment unavailability. If it's not contingent on financing, it's the same as it was before. The unavailability, I believe that the seller financing, it wasn't in there before. I was looking all over for it. So I'm not. Appraisal. This is the same update we saw in the residential where it just automatically goes ahead and puts in, you have the right to cure, not right to cure, and then how many days are we going to go ahead and negotiate on an appraisal. Secondary offer. It's just updated verbiage to go ahead and match. Closing prorations. Finally added in homeowners association assessments. So you no longer have to handwrite these in if you're dealing with apartment buildings, condos, you no longer have to write it in. Gap endorsement, it was changed to after the commitment date of the title commitment and after subject to a title policy conditions. That was just cleaned up verbiage. Delivery of a title, they just updated it so that it's 15 days if left blank. So you no longer have to go ahead and put in the 555 or whatever you were going ahead and putting it in. Special assessments, again, this boils back down to the date the offer was written, not the date the offer was accepted. So that means no later than closing. Anything prior to the date the offer was written is the seller's responsibility. After the offer was written becomes buyer responsibility unless you go ahead and negotiate it. Estoppel letters, they just updated the timeframes in which you can go ahead and put them in rather than just having to go ahead and put one in. If you leave it blank, it automatically defaults. They cleaned up what delivery, actual receipt, and business days mean for the commercial world. And then midnight is defined as 11:59 p.m. It's no longer midnight because midnight is the next day. Firm.
Technically, yep.
Yes. Firm. This was used to say agency. Party was literally client. Distribution of information, the disputed copies of this offer or seller's agent or of another property the seller intends to on purchasing. This was added. verbiage in there. Maintenance was cleaned up, that the seller shall maintain the property from the date on line 1. The date it was written. Property damage, the same thing. They added refuse onto the commercial offer, which is nice. So that means that instead of, well, it's debris, well, now we can say, please remove your trash. FERPDA was updated on the commercial. If you're unsure of FERPDA, reach out to an attorney or a CPA. None of us really quite understand what it is. We understand it's foreign investment, real estate, property, or transfer, but that's about it. But it puts the whole thing in here. So that way it explains it to your client. So if you want to read it to them, you're certainly welcome to, or turn it around and have them read it. And again, if they have questions, make sure that they're reaching out to their attorney and CPA. Tax deferred exchange was updated. So go ahead and make sure that everybody is in there. 1031s. I've never been involved in one in my entire life. I have no idea besides what I've heard. And electronic delivery was added where we can go ahead and put it on there for seller, for buyer. That's it for that one. Here is the next one for commercial. So there's going to be one with commercial, with business interest and without. It's the same. It is the same changes for both properties. So if you're selling a house and there's a sewing shop included, or they run a daycare out of this, this is the appropriate offer to purchase if you're purchasing the business as well. Make sense?
And has that always existed or is it new?
It's always been there.
Never needed it again. Excuse me.
Most of us residential agents go
Right.
commercial, call someone else.
Right.
We call Lee.
But you're right.
For
Like,
the business, it would be like if you're gonna sell like a bar. I've even sold like a hardware store where they want the real estate and the business and, the blue sky, in inventory. So there's 4 different items there that you're basically negotiating and pricing.
Yep.
So
but you're right. If it was like a home with a salon, how
Yep.
does that get sold as residential or as commercial?
Yes.
Both. I mean, yeah. So you just put it on this and
The
anybody can do
answer
it?
is yes.
Anybody
because
could do it. Okay.
it's business with real estate interest. It's whatever your client wants you to use. This would be the cleanest for you because it's actually going to cover all of the business stuff. But my caution to you is if you've never done a commercial deal, you partner up with like Lee or Dave Finnegan or somebody who's
Yeah.
really fluent in this verbiage, because you can get stuck. They just added the same lines, not to include personal property, what the fixtures actually mean, what are rented fixtures. Again, they updated closing, earnest money, same as before. Defects has almost been completely rewritten. A lot of this is all still the same, but there are things that have been added in here. So just make sure you're taking a look through and that you fully understand what's going on. Defects in wood burning stove or fireplace. This is a newish. You can see they like rewrote the entire thing. So make sure when you're going through, if they fill out a real estate condition report, which they don't want to, they don't have to, they're not legally bound to, but just making sure that your sellers and or buyers are aware of what defects need to be disclosed, whether it be in writing, verbally. Yay, any insurance claims relating to the damage or real estate in the last 5 years. This was added for us on the residential side last year, is now added to the commercial side. So if there has been any insurance claims, they have to go ahead and say, hey, we filed. Buyer and seller shall each file in accordance with section 1060 Internal Revenue Code of 1986 amended federal income taxes. This was just cleaned up verbiage for you folks. Zoning. Access to assets, written verification that there is legal vehicular access to the assets from the public roads. This was, it was in there, but it wasn't specific. So now it's specific. Now there has to be written verification that there's legal access. They've just gone ahead and updated the dates. And again, the NSPS, which I'm not sure who that is. They've updated the dates, how much acreage, what they're looking for. It's just all updated. Defects, because they updated that entire defect section, the definition was updated to include deficiencies. Satisfaction, all of this is the same as before. And then the most exciting part is they gave you an other line. No more blank addendum if you don't need it. There's an other line now.
It's a big line too.
It's super not, but personal property taxes, they're prorated unless otherwise defined. And then what they added was the blank, this blank portion right here. They updated the definition of levy. And they've updated the definition of business days, firm, party. Again, distribution of information was updated as well. Oh, notice the sex offender registry was only on a couple of the commercial properties. Now it's not on the commercial contracts, but now it's on all of them. Foreign investment in real property, they've just added it to your commercial stuff, which is awesome. Personal delivery and actual receipt was just combined. It used to be just two. That's it for that one. I'm not going to go over the one without real estate interest because it's exactly the same stuff that you've seen. All right, we'll go to vacant offer to purchase. This one is super exciting for those of us who sell vacant land. Back in the day, we'd have to be like XXX 330th Street, and we think it's in this township, but we're not entirely sure because the listing agent doesn't know. We now can just put the parcel numbers, property known as PID. We no longer have to put it in the other section. It is now considered a portion of when you fill this out. So that's a big deal. Because normally if you've ever written a vacant offer to purchase, when you get down into where you can add in stuff, you're like, this offer pertains to the following PIDs, and then you're listing them out. You just no longer have to do that. You can just put them right there. Makes it easier for us, and it makes it easier for the title companies. They've updated the vacant land disclosure report verbiage to match the vacant land disclosure report that was updated 2 years ago. So good thing. They just put it when it was dated, and then they added disclosure because it just said I think it's a VDLR. I can't remember. Again, they updated other than public rights of way, meaning that we don't have people blocking people from properties. They've updated their riparian rights because again, we can now leave our docks in the water.
Like on a daily basis?
You know, it was always so in the winter, you would have to pull everything out, fall, winter, you pull everything out,
Yeah.
and you weren't ever allowed to put in a permanent dock. It always had to be mobile. Well, now they've changed that to now if your property covers this waterway, you can now put in a permanent structure. So they updated the verbiage for that. Managed forest land. If any of you sell a lot of vacant property, you're super familiar with managed forest land. They just updated it. Because when you look at right here where it says may jeopardize benefits, there is one managed forest land that you can go ahead and put in, but it allows everybody to hunt on your property. You cannot go ahead and put up no trespassing signs. You can't block them. You can't fully fence that. So this was becoming a pretty big argument up in Polk, Barron counties, places not all of us go. Some of us go there a lot. Now they have to just be aware, like which forestry program are you in? Because if you're putting an offer in and you're thinking, yes, I'm going to fence it all in and I don't want hunters in here, you may be in for a rude awakening when the DNR comes in, takes all your fence down and hands you a bill. So that's why they added may jeopardize benefits. Early termination of a farmland preservation agreement or removal. They just cleaned it up. It is always per acre value. So if you have your cropland in a set aside program and you want to go ahead and remove it, it just put in the new value there for you. There is incentive payments with some conservation. So they now have to say, hey, the homeowner before you might have benefited, but you're not, or you will continue to benefit. They'll adopt uniform shoreline zoning ordinance in compliance with Wisconsin code. These were just updated when the riparian rights were updated. All right, buyers advised to check with city, town, and village for additional shoreline zoning, shoreline restrictions. So even though the state had a huge victory with the riparian rights, cities, counties, townships, they still all maintained their own. So you still want to make sure if they say no permanent dock for you. Fences are a big deal. With even just with homes with houses, just making sure that we're clear. If property or adjoining land is used and occupied for farming and grazing purposes, make sure that you're addressing that in your offers. Because as we know, tenants' rights come before owner rights in Wisconsin. So if they have a contract that says, hey, it's the same thing. You can't kick a renter out of a home. You also can't kick them off of property. Proposed use was just updated. Just some cleaned up verbiage. This updated the 30 days zoning approval permits. They just put a lot more space and cleaned up the language that was in here. You'll see access to the property was added in there with the written verification. This was changed to buyer land permits. Before it was just a check. Seller agrees to cooperate. Really? No, I'm just kidding. All right. This is another good one that was added. Was it ever a dump site? Do we have an invasive species here? Are they protected? So it's a good thing to be added. These ones where it's just saying 15 days, 10 days, they were just updated to go ahead and make it a default. So if you didn't go ahead and put in dates, it automatically defaults a timeline for you. All right. An appraised value less than agreed upon. Before it just said if it didn't meet an appraised value. Closing of buyer property contingency. They made land offers bumpable. I know, right? I'm like, who would do that? Homeowners Association was added. They just changed this to match all of the other stuff. Instead of it saying VLDR, now it's actually spelled out for you. Again, just more dates updated. Buyer shall have 5 days from receipt of notice. And that's it for that one. Let's see. The farm. Anybody sell farms? No? I'm gonna sell a farm,
Yeah.
but it's
Tried
not,
to,
it's
but-
not, it's not gonna be this type of farm. We're under, it is under the 20 acre.
I know someone who needs to sell a farm, but she won't call me back.
Right. Again, they just added so you can put the PID in there, which is nice because sometimes you have a farm and the farm is here and the land is 10 miles this way and it owns over here. So now you can go ahead and address all of that right at the very beginning.
Where are you putting the PID though? In 4 or 5 or 759?
It's
Three
4
different-
and 5, the property is
Okay.
known as. Yep. I love this. Annual crops are not part of the purchase price unless agreed upon. This allows farmers to go ahead and take their corn off. The fixture verbiage was updated. So just making sure if you're with a farm, making sure that you understand what is considered a fixture for them. Silo unloaders, otters, feeding equipment, bulk tanks, refrigeration systems, pipeline systems, all of these are in there. Exclude any fixtures that are not retained. This is rental. I love this. Finally put in the rental agreement and crop lease agreements, and that they have the right to access and harvest. So they had the right to access it before, but they did not have the right to harvest, meaning they couldn't bring in all of their stuff. All right. The property includes the land. Because as we know with farmers, they don't always, it's not always one big. So they've just gone ahead and updated that. They've also updated by basement, defects in the plumbing system or basement window or plumbing leaks, overflow from sinks, bathtubs, sewers, all of that stuff was added and considered a plumbing defect. They added dump sites on this, pesticides, herbicides, all of that was already in there. Defects relating to a joint well serving the property, out of service wells and cisterns closed and abandoned according to applicable regulations, those were added. A septic system or private sanitary disposal system that serves the property. This just said pouts before and they just changed it to this. So it's pouts on everything else. If there's defects in the LP tank on the property and they're aware of it, even if it is rented, they still must disclose it to you. So if they're like, well, there's a minor leak out there, but I've called the propane company, they still need to go ahead and disclose that. Again, private or public rights of way can be violated. They've updated, including livestock sighting violations. The code itself has been updated. So if you're selling a farm, make sure that they understand what their code is. Not your job to know what that code is. We're not attorneys. Just your job to make sure that they are fully understanding. Riparian rights again. They also now have to go ahead and disclose if they were wiped out from crop disease. Because it could very well be the soil. They have to go ahead and disclose previous agreements. And then, again,
So
with
is
FERPTA.
part of their condition report would ask those questions, wouldn't it?
Mhm. Yep.
Great.
There's a specific one for a farm.
Right.
The words in the managed forest land said they added the if and the colon. That's what they did. Again, if they're same as the vacant land. Fences. Timelines were just put in there, zoning classifications, as if you're going ahead and try to change things. Nitrate and arsenic was added. It wasn't on the farm one before. It's been on every other one for a couple of years now. Even though we all handwrite it in anyways, we're like bacteria, nitrates and arsenic. You don't have to, because technically it's pre-written, but good deal. This covers the property transfer wells inspection reports, indicates the type of wells. This is the biggest mistake that we make with well and septics on our offers, is we're not being clear. So if we say we want a report that says it's a drilled well, and they come back and say it's a pit well. Well, okay, but we wanted a drilled well. You know, it opens a door for negotiations with that, or point driven wells are very, very prevalent up north on Lake Holmes. They literally just jam a pipe down into the ground until they hit water and pump it out. So just making sure that we're clear when we go ahead and say, when we're saying that this is contingent on it being a drilled well. So if it's not, this opens the door for negotiations if it is a pit well. You're not required to know what the differences are, but I can tell you.
Just gonna say, how do we know? I don't know what the differences are, and I don't know.
Drilled is the standard right now, where you've got the well head in the property. It's got to be 12 to 13 inches above grade. A pit well will often be enclosed in a box type of situation, or have some sort of cover. The problem with pit wells is because it's not a standard drilled well. It's still a drilled well, but it's not a standard. You can actually run it dry. So that's the danger of them. Sand point or point driven wells are the same thing. It's a temporary well. A pit well is considered permanent, but with the understanding that you can run it dry. So you don't run sprinklers all day long. You're not filling pools with it, because you literally run that risk.
I think basically the difference is a drilled well will have the pump down in the shaft, and all the other ones, the pump is exposed above ground or above the pipe.
Yep. Which is scary. And you see people, if you've never seen a point driven well, and all of a sudden you have a new buyer and they just bought this and they're like, and now we got to winterize it. How do we do that? Call a plumber, number one, because we don't know, but it is quite a process, because they got to remove the pump, put the pump in storage, and it's a lot.
Do we need a class on wells or?
Nope.
Okay, all right.
We do not need.
I don't want to be dumb when I'm on showings and I'm like, I don't know what kind of well it is, but that's what I do right now, because I don't know what kind of well it is.
Haven't inspected. That's why you haven't inspected.
That's why I have it inspected. I mean, obviously, everybody wants the drilled well, because with the pit well, if you run it out of its water, will it fill back up? Will the water table come back up enough? You just don't know. With point driven, and once the water's gone, time for a new well. If you were purchasing a house, if it was me, I would want a drilled well.
So the drilled well are typically deeper, is that what you're saying?
Well, like Lee said, the pump is down.
Gotcha.
into the well, where the pit well, you've got all of the pipe, and then the pit is where the pump and the pressure tank and everything, it's all. I learned about pit wells a year ago and was terrified that they actually still exist.
And so like, I know the Minnesota well disclosure, ask how deep the well is. And I know that's right on the disclosure, what year and how deep. I don't know if it is in Wisconsin that way.
That is that form where they're getting the transfer, and it should say if it was filed with the county.
Gotcha.
No, all wells have to be filed with the state, but they don't know it. There are some well drillers who will not follow up with the county. So. Yay, Wisconsin.
Sounds like a call Becky situation.
Sounds like
You're
that. We're not
"I don't
sure,
know."
call the inspector.
Evidence that-
It just updated the verbiage for abandoned well, and then it added county sanitarian, which I've never actually heard that. I had to Google it and I still don't quite understand.
Sounds like the licensed master plumber is the guy doing it.
Well, and you want to have somebody who is skilled at this. All plumbers can go ahead and go out and inspect your septic system, but if all they ever do is repairs or residential installing.
And literally, if you call the local plumber guy, he knows everyone in the town, and they
Yeah.
tell you, oh, no, we didn't do that, so-and-so did it, so then you call
Yeah.
them, they tell you everything. That's what, I just had that experience.
Yep, it is. It's fun. The verbiage for the environmental evaluation contingency has been added. Sorry, I read all of this stuff and I had like tons of notes and I flew out of my house and guess where my notebook is. Oh, sure. This one was. It's one of those things that's not going to come up a lot, but it is in there. So an environmental site assessment is also known as phase one site assessment, may include but is not limited to an inspection of the property, a review of ownership and use history of the property, including search of title records showing private ownership for a period of 80 years prior to the visual inspection. I mean, this is some complicated stuff, and I think if you ended up getting into environmental issues with this, you definitely need to have them contact an attorney. When you're dealing with environmental, we're not there. A proposed amendment is not a notice of defects. Okay, because this is a big argument in Wisconsin, like, well, I sent an amendment, isn't that my notice of defects? And it is not your notice of defects. Your notice of defects is you filling out a notice saying, we're pulling the plug and all of my reasons are listed below, signed, here you go. That is a notice of defects. Amendment, you are asking, saying, hey, I found all these issues and I would like you to fix them. What do you think? And an amendment says, here you go, and they have no choice, no say.
So the
And
notice-
notice is
the
a
notice of
demand.
defects, yeah, gotcha.
Yep. Inspection contingency was just updated to match the actual offer to purchase, not just the vacant land in this, because we're on at the farm. All of this was just added. Remember when we put the right on stuff on the residential offer to purchase, it was just added to the farm. It just cleaned it up. So now when you're going through and filling out an offer to purchase for vacant land, a regular property, a condo, a farm, it shouldn't be like, whoa, I've never seen this before. They really just tried to make them very uniform so you understand what you're looking at. Talked about that. Does everybody understand what a loan commitment means in Wisconsin?
No.
Okay, so we've gone through all of the process. The buyers have fulfilled everything and the lender is prepared to say clear to close, or the lender's like, we're really close to clear to close, but it can go ahead and get you a commitment. So the commitment is the lender saying buyer has done everything they can to go ahead and achieve this loan. Your commitments can have contingencies. It can be, we're good to go, the buyer still needs to do a final employment check, or we have to have another bank statement. That can all be on there to go ahead and satisfy the financial contingency. You cannot just send it. If the lender sends it to you and says, hey, here's your loan commitment, you now have to go ahead and talk with your buyer about this, because this falls under confidential information. They have to give you written permission to go ahead and share that with the seller. And it's
Written permission via email?
written permission needs to be ink,
Okay.
wet signature. So with
Really?
that,
Can't be an email.
can't be an email.
But can it be it doesn't have to be what? Can it be DocuSign or a thought sign?
You know, the rule of thumb has always been that it's a wet signature. I don't see anything in there where a DocuSign wouldn't.
Right, still a signature.
It's still a signature, still an approved signature, but remember, we're still in that gray area of our electronic signatures valid. Did they really understand what they were doing? Did they really understand that they were giving up some confidential information? So it's kind of one of those things where it would be preferred a wet signature, actually have the question out to the legal hotline, like, hey, would this work? So it is as simple as saying, I, buyer, grant you, the realtor, permission to share this with the sellers and the agent representing the sellers, and then they sign it. That's it. Easy peasy.
Who would have a problem with it? The buyer, if something fell apart? Because I've never had a listing agent say, I won't accept it.
Yeah, I really, do you know
That's
how
what I'm
many
like, who would have a problem with it?
the buyer,
Okay.
all day long, especially so they get the loan commitment. And all of a sudden it falls apart. Well, but you gave me a loan commitment letter. Well, this is why contingencies are still allowed on the commitment letter. It just satisfies that financing contingency, so that's where you got to really be careful with it, because if it satisfies the financing contingency and the loan falls apart, can you get your buyer out?
Earnest money is it?
Earnest money is now at
Big
stake.
Minnesota issue. It says right on there.
Yep. So just be careful. And if you have a listing agent that pushes back and says, we want a loan commitment, 3 weeks before closing, really? No, I'm going to give you a loan commitment 3 days prior to closing when we got it clear to close. So protect your buyer. Just updated that if it's cash, 7 days, again, when you give this letter saying, yep, we got all sorts of cash, they still have to give you written permission to go ahead and do that. So appraisal contingency on a farm is like commercial. It is from the date the offer was written, not accepted. It's a whole different appraisal process. Right to cure, all of this was added in to match the offer to purchase. The bump was updated. It used to be the old bump one where we had to fill it in, and it was confusing, even though some of us are still a little confused by a bump. So you can check the boxes, proof of bridge loan financing or proof of ability to close from a financial institution or third party. Hard money lenders, they can go in here now. So when you write a bump, you still want to check both of them, because what if they can't get a bridge loan, but then they do know a hard money lender that they can go ahead and work with. So you still want to check them both. They added 7 days in that, or homeowners association. I have never seen a farm in a homeowners association, but
Yeah, right.
it is Wisconsin. We do things a little different here. delivery of was added. It's no longer says merchantable title. And it just updated the written verbiage to go ahead and allow the 15 days. Actual receipt was defined. Remember what actual receipt is? When all parties are in possession. Business day is updated. Bin date again clarified. Maintenance. And this is where it gets a little tough because this is just like commercial. The date it was written, not the date it was accepted. They updated FERPTA. We did a farm offer on the Krenz team once. And I remember Jared coming in the office and saying, all right, we had to extend the date out because the farmer had to go dig up his money because it was an Amish buyer and they buried their money out in their field. It does happen.
Huh,
All right,
marked it well.
let's go to the bill of sale, which is my favorite. I mean, nothing major was added except for the most major thing was added. Right now, if you were to do the old bill of sale, as soon as the seller signs it, the buyer owns the property.
Hmm.
Right?
We talked about that, yeah.
They added it in there. The bill still is effective upon a successful closing, meaning that the sellers can go ahead and maintain ownership of their property, which is a great thing. So if you're using a bill of sale, you no longer have to add in the verbiage that transfer will occur upon closing. It's all in there for you. And then the last one we're going to talk about is the,
Who else signs that? Like the old one, only the seller signs, right? They both
that is
sign.
correct. Ooh, sorry, one more thing was added. Yep, only the seller sign it. The buyer says, hey, seller, I want all your stuff. Please sign and say, yes, you'll give it to me. Seller's entity or authorized signature, that was added on to it.
And so question on that, I have a closing on 10/29. Do we have to update it, that bill of sale? I see at the top there, it says
Yep.
optional use.
But you're, no,
It's been under contract.
it's already under contract, so mandatory use is not, well, it's tomorrow, but it's already in, so it's already,
Okay,
you're good. The multiple counter proposal. I love this thing, and everybody is so confused by it. Does everybody know what a multiple counter proposal is?
when you can counter multiple people.
Right.
Almost like a highest and best initiated by.
It's a Wisconsin's highest and best kind of. So I send a multiple counter proposal to all of you guys and everybody accepts it. Now what?
First one to deliver it,
Nope.
you have to accept it?
The seller has to pick one.
Oh, really?
Yep. So even if you get a multiple counter proposal and your buyer says, yes, I agree to all these terms, you have to say, great, don't get too excited because this means that we're still in competition. And we may say yes, but they may still pick the other person. So the only thing that was added besides the mandatory use date was that they now can reject or counter the multiple proposal.
So yeah, you better send a rejection back to the other ones that didn't get it, huh?
No, it says the multiple counter proposal was approved by the buyer, is rejected or countered.
By the seller.
That's what I mean, but the seller should probably,
So now here's the thing. And we talked about this in July, August. Does the seller have to sign the rejection? Do they have to sign saying that they've rejected the offer? Correct, they do not. They just have to say, Mark, I don't want to go with this offer. Please let the other agent know that we're moving the other way. They don't have to. You cannot compel them to sign a piece of paper they don't want to sign. It actually just came up again on the legal hotline, which I think is funny. Because I told them exactly what, like, hey, it's right there. So the question continues to come up. So we as agents need to go ahead and make sure that we're communicating that very clearly with our buyers and sellers that, nope, you don't have to. They may ask us for proof. So what is proof that you went ahead and actually gave them the offer?
Yeah.
It's vague. It's
Right.
You want me to answer that?
document, document, document.
Yeah,
It is one of those situations that comes up it comes up probably on a monthly basis. Like, we just never heard anybody, then nobody is talking to us. We didn't get an official rejection. And always the answer is, well, did the agent reach out to you and let you know that the seller moved on with another offer? Yep, well, there you go. There's your proof. It's hard. There are people who have hard feelings, and this market has been mental for hard feelings. They just want to know. They're all like, oh no, we want to know. Well, that's great. So if you can get your seller to go ahead and sign the rejection, great. If they don't want to, they don't have to. So when you go ahead and send off your Dear John letter, dear realtor, we went ahead and sat down at this date, at this time, and went over your offer. However, the seller is moving on with another offer. You've just killed two birds in one stone.
just watch your email date that you send it out to your seller. And then also for me, I had a reply back from a text from the seller that said that they were not going to accept that offer. And so you just save your text and save your email.
Yep, there's actually a program out there where you can convert your texts into a PDF document. There's not a free one, but we've all had those ugly situations where, someone's complaining. Saving your text is a good idea. I mean, it is a form of communication, and it's actually digital documentation that you've got that. So save it. All right, that is.
It's one of the reasons I do
You know, if you can't
for email.
take save your text, just take a screenshot.
Yep. So now we're going to get on to some really, really good news. You guys are going to be the first to hear that our market center has just joined. It's weird, you can join other MLSs, but in some MLSs, the entire market center, not every agent, but the market center as an entity has to join an MLS. So I reached out to Jen and Jared and said, I really want to be a part of the Northwestern Wisconsin MLS. If you've ever done a deal in Eau Claire, you know that you have to fight for your commission. You have to fight for your commission all of the time because they don't want to pay you because you are not part of the MLS, and how dare you come in my territory. They're a little guarded over there. I continue to go east. I go north. I know that several of you guys go north, and Mark, you just went north. So this in the blue, sorry, I keep pointing at the computer. In the blue is the Northwest Wisconsin MLS coverage. That's a huge chunk on top of the North Star MLS, which we know is this. This is the reason why this is blue, and they show it to you, is it says jurisdiction. Since North Star allows coming soon, these guys don't. So if you're a part of this organization and you're listing in Dunn County, Barron County, Pepin, you cannot do the coming soon. And if you're listing here, and even though it's on the border and you only want to do North Star MLS, you must list it with them. Jurisdiction means they own it. We're just allowed to do business there. So just keep that in mind. But this is huge. The system that we were using before was pretty antiquated. So if you're going to go ahead and do business in Eau Claire, Menominee, it's funny because most of Polk County, you probably go right here and everything Polk County is still listed with North Star. You get in northern Polk County, it's all Northwest. So we don't get to see that. So the Market Center is a part of Northwest Wisconsin MLS. So if you wanted to join their MLS, you are able to. It's $50 a month. And it gets paid, it gets billed bi-monthly. If you're like, oh, I only do like 1 or 2 deals, good news. I pay $50 a month to be a part of it. No, because if it's, well, yeah, I mean, you want to refer them, so great.
I don't want to drive up this whole year.
But then like with yours, because it's in Hayward, correct?
Yes.
So with that, we had to like monkey around a little bit. And if you ever get in that situation where you're selling in Eau Claire and the agent's like, well, I'm not paying you, we'll say, well, guess what? We have a cold list, or we have a cold buyer agent, Becky Christensen, my broker, who is a part of that, which will mitigate all of that. So if you don't want to pay to be a part of the MLS, that's okay. But if you're doing a deal over there and there's questions, you're just getting a weird feeling from the agent. When you're filling out the offer, you just put agent Jen Gillard and Becky Christensen.
Oh, you can have 2?
Yeah,
Oh.
you can have them all. if you want.
Speaking of that, is there anything I need to do to make sure I get my commission on the deal I'm doing right now? Okay, good.
Oh, wait, who? Oh, that's not the
Chuck.
property executives one.
Chuck, what's his name? Charles, I'll let you know.
What I would do is send him an email and say, hey, we're getting close to closing. I just want to verify that the buyer agency payout is whatever the percentage. And then when they say yes and say, okay, great, I'll let my Market Center know that we're prepared for that. Because you want it in writing.
Yeah.
It's difficult because when I fight a lot in Eau Claire for commission, and occasionally when I've been up in Burnett County, I've had to fight for my commission there too. This just takes the pressure off of everybody, because if now you don't even have to, if you don't even want to ask the question, you just say that I am your co-agent. Just throw my name down there, whammo. Now there's no question, they have to pay you.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a dumb question. Right now, we don't have access to any of their MLS stuff, so now we will,
Well,
right?
He does.
I do.
Okay.
If you're a part of the WWRA on your MLS, you'll see a little tab that says WireX, because North Star through the WWRA participates in like this communal thing where you can see them, but it is seriously antiquated, would you say?
They don't give you a lot.
They don't
Well,
give you
that's
a
what
lot
I
of
mean. I feel like we
information.
see some of the listings, but not all of them.
Correct.
And that's usually where I tell my buyer, hey, I'm gonna refer you to someone in that MLS because I don't
Right.
have access to everything. I just
But
have
if you
some of them.
don't, so like say you have a buyer and they want to buy up there wherever, it's a family member and you're like, jeepers,
I just did it, and she set it up to the.
Yep.
Okay,
I can set up a search, and if you're comfortable,
Yeah.
because I'm not here to take your clients, not by any means. You just send me their email address
Okay.
and then I will CC you on the MLS, and then you will see what they're seeing. You'll see
Perfect.
what they're hearting.
and you're right, what does it matter if I set it up or you set it up? It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Same
But
thing.
then if you're like, hey, we're gonna write an offer, Becky, can you send us the MLS and the disclosures? Now I can, where before it was like, okay, let me
Right,
make a
okay.
couple phone calls, and now we gotta beg for
Yeah.
our commission. So it's no longer that way. So,
Awesome.
hey, yeah, that's my exciting news.
That is cool. Yeah.
And it looks different. It looks really different. I'm gonna pop on there because I'm like, oh, I'm not sure.
But But you're right, every now and then you get that one who's like, I'm looking for a cabin all the way up to Duluth on a lake.
Right, but
Okay,
if you wanted to, because that was your
That was
situation,
my
right?
Yeah, I got
I
one
mean,
too. You know him, Tom Hanson. He's looking for a cabin. I'm like, okay.
I love Max.
I don't have one.
I don't understand them.
Let's do this.
I just think when I'm like looking back at it and you're not the only person I'm helping out, I'm helping quite a few because we all have those family members or friends. They're, it's similar because obviously it's still done by Core Matrix. But it is a little different looking. The search. I always do detail. That's what I like to do. It pre-checks boxes for you, which I'm like, oh gosh, I don't love that. I don't want to see, you know, if it has an offer on it, why would I ever want to look at that? You can also choose what MLSs you want to see. If you're only looking for one particular, I always want to just see them. There we go. I just want to see them all. So then you can, we'll just do Barron County.
It's pretty close though.
Yeah, it's not so just.
It's really close until you see the,
See the results.
do you remember the paper I sent you? The
Yeah.
only difference is there's a picture now. But the layout is very different.
Yeah.
All of the disclosures are here.
Oh,
Acreage
Used
is
to be that
over
way, didn't it?
here. It's and do you notice the one thing that I was floored? You have to go way down before you can get remarks.
Yeah.
The legal description is under the remarks. And then, of course, our so variable, that just means that it's open for negotiation if they bring their own buyer. Is it on realtor.com? I thought that was a funny one.
that is funny.
So yeah. So yeah, so if you have somebody that's looking in the area and you don't want to necessarily put the financial burden of $50 a month to another MLS, give me a call. I'm paying for it. Goal is for this market center to like dominate Wisconsin.
Yeah, baby.
We're going to. I mean, if you think about it, if you drive 45 minutes anywhere, why wouldn't you just drive 45 minutes into Wisconsin? You're 20 minutes from the border from here. And that just would just cover all of the Pierce and Pepin County.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? So yeah. Any questions?
Awesome.
So if you use Zip Forms, all the forms auto update. If you grab the forms off of the Keller Williams site, I'll be sending them over to go ahead and update those forms on there.
Hey, Becky,
Yes,
with the association, you mentioned $50 a month. Is there still an annual fee with Wisconsin as well?
it's only because it's MLS only, it is just $50 a month. You're not actually joining another association. You're just joining the MLS there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Becky, I had a question too. I don't know if it's time for questions yet.
It's always time for questions. Hi, Heather, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I had a question about the signature we need from the buyer to share the loan commitment package.
Yep.
Am I able to write that in under the additional contingencies so it's on writing and it's upfront and it's acknowledged just from the beginning when we get signatures that the buyer is willing to share the loan commitment package with the sellers and their agent?
Part of the offer, they're signing it.
No, and I see where you're going because it's just trying to go ahead and mitigate a step. Let me find out the clear answer because right now the answers that I'm getting from the WRA are muddled. Because they're saying it's such a specific document that you would literally have to address it as a financial commitment letter. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to personally in the buyer agency agreement, because where it says. you
It
want
says
your
right there.
Confidential information.
I asked that before.
A pre-approval letter is
Pre-approval
more,
letter.
more confidential than a loan commitment
Right,
letter.
especially with some of the pre-approval
don't
letters
even-
that go ahead and say, yeah, their credit score is, and
Yeah.
you're like,
Right.
whoa. But let me get a clear answer for you on that, Heather.
Okay, and then the second question was, if that's not approved, would Keller Williams create a form that we just print or access through the Market Center that has all the correct wording in there, so we just include that with all the other paperwork we get signatures from?
We could see. It'd be
Awesome, thank you.
draft and have Michelle take a look at for us, you know. We just want to make sure that we're not just protecting our clients, but making sure that we're protecting you as the agent, because you don't ever want to be hit with a confidentiality complaint. You automatically are a loser. They will not, if it says, hey, they went ahead and shared this confidential information without my permission. Which is also why I think they lean towards the wet signature when it comes to that financial commitment letter, because now that's your protection. You've literally had sat down with them and said, can I please have permission to share this? Does that make sense? So it's a matter of making
Yes.
sure protecting you, protecting them, protecting you. But I'll get clarification on it, because if we can go ahead and just address it in our buyer agency agreement, then I will put together verbiage that will run it past the attorney and see if she likes it. And if she likes it, then bam, we're done. But then we'll also
Awesome.
clear the question whether it can be electronic or wet, because this is the one part of that contract where it's always been required to be a wet signature. So. Perfect. Any other questions? Anybody want to share good news? No.
I'm going to the Bahamas next week.
Jen's going to the
Or
Bahamas.
anything else right now. Just kidding.
She's got room in her suitcase for all of us. Awesome. All right, well, if you guys need anything, you know how to find me.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.